Hey you guys, I'm so excited. Today we are going to make another jig, and today the jig is the jig that I use to make these kind of raised panels for the lid of my boxes, so we can do this safely on the table saw. It's a super easy jig to make, anybody can do it, and I'm going to show you how to make it step by step. Now, if you've been a subscriber at my channel, you know I use this technique a lot on a lot of my boxes. I'll put some pictures for you guys to see on the screen, and I'm gonna show you how to make this step by step. And as usual, I'll put all the link in the description below for all the things that you will need to make this. So let's get right into it. All right, you guys, to start, I will start with making the platform that the box lid is going to get clamped into. So I'm gonna make mine pretty small because I make small boxes. I will never make anything that is bigger than 12 inches. Now, if you're doing this to do it like bookcases or like nightstands and you need it bigger, make it to fit your project. For me, I make it smaller because I make small things, and also I don't have that much room to store my jigs, so I'm gonna go as small as I need to in order to, save space. I'll be using Baltic birch for this just because I have a whole bunch of them that I bought to make jigs. You do not need to use that nice of a plywood. You can use any plywood that you want. Here is the piece of plywood I'll be starting with, and for reference for me, this one it's about 12 inches and 3/4 by 11 and 3/4. It was just a scrap piece of plywood that I had around, so this is what I'm going to use for my main platform that the box is going to get clamped on. Now, the next thing is, how do we clamp our box? Because you might have a tiny box or you might have a bigger box. So we need our clamp to be able to move to make it, smaller or larger project. So because of that, I'm going to work with the dovetail router bit. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I think I have another one in here. If not, I'll bring you closer into my router. All right, I do not have an extra one, but I'll bring you in closer. So here is my dovetail bit, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. The one I'm using is from Microjig. That's because I'll be using their clamps. So I'm using their router bit because I know it will fit the clamps perfectly. And Microjig recommends that you use their straight bit first to clear out most of the waste, and then use the dovetail one. That way this bit, it will last you longer and doesn't put so much work into it. But I'm just gonna plow straight with my dovetail bit. I've been doing it like that. If the bit goes bad, I'll purchase a new one. Their straight bit that you're supposed to clear most of the material with, it looks like this. I will skip this step. I'm going straight for dovetail. Now, as for the height of the router bit, they recommend you put it at 3/8 inch. I'm sorry. To adjust that height perfectly, I'm using this little gadget over here. This is an electronic kind of measurer thingy. And the way it works, the way I did it, is I put this down. I put this measuring thing completely down, and then I zero it. You hold down this red button to zero it. And then I put it on top of the bit on the highest point, and I adjusted the height and make sure this is down on it until it measured 3/8 inch. This thing doesn't measure on fractions, so I transform it into millimeters. It was 9.5 millimeter, so that's the height of the bit I did. So this is how I adjusted. So now that we have the 3/8 inch height of the router bit, now it's time to put some grooves into our plywood. All the grooves will be put on one side of the plywood. And I'll show you kind of the way it looks like. I use this technique for many jigs, and here is one of them. This is just my sacrificial fence for my table saw. You can see the blade, how I used it on each side. And I use this, this is what the dovetail groove it looks like. And then Microjig sells these clamps that are fitting perfectly into these grooves. So this is the way they fit in. So this will allow you to clamp it to your table saw, fence, or box to this jig and so on. So this is what I'm going for. I hope that makes sense. All right, so what I will be doing, I am going to make two grooves like this and two like this, and that will give me options to clamp my box from the side, from the top, however I need to. So I set my, let's see how this distance is. I didn't really set it up. All right, maybe I'll get it just a little bit closer. There you go. Maybe that's too close. I'll do it right there. So I'm going to make a groove over there into this side. Then I'm going to flip it over, and the same distance I'm going to make another one, and that's going to give me two parallel grooves. And then I turn the board like this, and then run two more grooves like that, and we should end up with like a tic-tac-toe design. So I'm going to go ahead and do those grooves, and I'm not going to talk while I do that because I'll be having my dust collector on and the router makes sound noise. So but that's what I'm doing. All right, you guys, my groove was getting very clogged with the dust. It had no way to go. So what I'm going to do, I'm sorry, my dust collection was still going. I hope you can hear me now. The groove was getting full with dust because it had no way to go, even though I have dust collection connected. The fence is too far and this hole was too small, so it didn't have any room to suck in the dust. So I'm just going to change this clearance plate to something bigger because I don't need it to be zero clearance almost because, you know, I'm working with a larger piece. So there you go. Now it's going to have more clearance and hopefully it will suck in some of that dust. All right, let's make the rest of the grooves now. All right, you guys, this is the way our panel looks so far. As you can see, I can clamp now. If you feel you need even more control or where you want to put your clamps, you can always add one extra groove in the middle just so you have more places to clamp. But I think this should work. Now it's time to work on the part that connects to our table saw. And I'm going to make mine to ride on the fence. So what I need to do is I need to build a saddle that will hold the plate that we just made. So what I'm going to do, I have this piece of Baltic birch plywood. I will cut a strip and I measured my fence height, and my fence height is about 2 inches and 5/8. So I'm going to cut a strip of 2 inches and 5/8 and then we'll see where we go from there. All right, you guys, so here is my strip. What I will do now is I'm just gonna go to the miter saw and just cut this in half. I could be cutting two of this and make them as long as my board, but I really don't need it to be that long. So I'm just gonna cut this in half. I'm not even sure what the length of this board is. It's 20 inches, so I'm going to cut it at 10 inches. All right, so now I have the two pieces that is gonna be part of the saddle. I don't know if you can see from there. Let me bring you closer. Now my pieces, it just so happened they're just a little bit shorter than the fence, and that's okay. That way they're not gonna drag on the table. They're gonna kind of just ride on the fence. They're gonna be a little bit suspended in the air. And that is perfect. That just means I have to put one little shim just to make contact when I put the top piece. So I have one for each side. Now I need to measure the piece that will connect these two to create this saddle to help my jig slide on the fence. So I need to cut, it says 5.5 inches. I'm gonna cut 6 because it's okay if it sticks out this way. I don't want it to be more narrow. I would rather have it wider. This side has to be flush because we don't want to push the panel that way. So it'll be flush that way, but it can stick out in this way. What did I say I'm cutting? I'm cutting 6 inches. All right, so what I am going to do now, I'm going to cut this piece to the length of this saddle, so just around there. because this piece is going to get screwed on those two pieces that are riding on each side of the fence. So I'm going to cut this part, and then this part, I might glue it and screw it into this panel over here, because this one is wider than this little panel. That way it's going to give me a little bit more surface to screw in my tall panel that the box will be clamped onto. So I'm going to go cut this at the miter saw. Now, to make sure that I'm not pushing this over the edge when I screw it in into this panel, what I will do is I will glue and screw in these two pieces first. So I'm going to go at my bench. I'm going to put some glue in there and glue and screw these guys in. Make sure I countersink the screws, and yep, that's what I'm gonna do. All right, you guys, so this is what we have. I have glued and screwed this plank to this plank, and I probably put way too many screws because it has glue too, but you know what, better safe than sorry. So now this guy is going to sit like this, and now this guy is going to sit like this on top of it. So now you can use glue or not, or you can just screw it. I am going to use glue and screws. Now I'm going to put a clamp to hold these guys together while I screw this in place. Make sure you don't make it too tight. It has to be able to slide on your fence. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, you guys, a little word of advice. I already made a mistake and I had to fix it. So remember how we put this wider plank, we screwed it into this one? Well, don't do that. Do these three pieces first, because I put this one first and then I couldn't reach with my drill to like put these screws in. So put these three pieces, the U shape that goes on your fence first, and then screw this one from the outside. And make sure you countersink them because we need to put the other board in here too. So now this guy, it just sits on my fence like this. And now it slides in there. It's a little bit stiff. I think I clamped it a little bit hard, but that's okay because I'll be putting some paste wax in there and then it's going to slide really, really nicely. So right now I need to put in, we need to screw in this board that we made in the beginning. So this guy is just going to be screwed in there just like this. And then we can use the clamps to clamp our boxes. And we're gonna demonstrate, we'll make a raised panel lid for a box. Well, we'll just pretend we'll make it for a box because I don't have a box right now in the works. But we'll just make a raised panel to see if it works. But this should be good. Okay, maybe I should have made a third one in here. Well, it's done now. You know what? I will go and put one more groove over here just to be safe. I don't want to screw it all into place and then regret that I didn't have a third slot. So I'm gonna go put just one right here in the middle. All right, I ended up putting one more slot over there, and now it's time to screw this panel into this panel. Can you see there? All right, we'll screw this one into this one. So I'm gonna do that and I'll see you right after and we'll take it for a test drive. One other thing I added to my jig, on the back of the board here, I took a piece of poplar, sanded the edges really nice so it's smooth and nice to the touch, and this is going to act as a handle. I can hold it and push the jig in and out as I need it. So otherwise it's just kind of, you have nothing to grab. So I like to have that, makes it really easy to control the jig. All right, I'm gonna go get a piece of lumber and we'll see if we can make a raised panel. All right, I found a scrap of wood. This is a piece of cherry, 1 inch by, I don't even know what it is. It doesn't matter, we'll just pretend this is our lid. I'm not even sure it's square, the edges are rounded. I don't know what is left from what project, but we're just gonna put some, tight angles on it and see if the jig works. Now for my boxes, when I make those lids, I like to keep the blade angle at 15 or 20 degrees. That's kind of my preference. If the lid is larger, I'll go with 15 because then it takes longer to, make a longer chamfer. And if the box is small, then I'll go to 20 so I can leave room in the middle for a flat spot where I can attach the handle. So for this one, I'll go with 15 and let's get going. We have to determine where do we want to start our chamfer, because if you imagine this is the lid, probably a portion, the bottom portion is going to sit in a rabbet onto the lid. So we have to start from somewhere over here to make that chamfer. So I'm gonna put the blade at 15 degrees. I don't even need to be exact, I'll just kind of eyeballing it. It doesn't matter if it's exact or not. This is our piece of material. I wanna make sure. Now I wanna look at the mark that I made and I know where I need to start my angle and make sure that that's kind of where it needs to be. So I'm gonna go from right over there. Like that, lock it in place. We need a clamp. And now I have many options where I can clamp this piece of wood, but I'm going to go like this. Make sure it's really clamped in there and it's not going anywhere. And now my hands don't have to be near the blade. Make sure the clamp doesn't hit the blade, which it's not right now. So, all right, let's take it for a test drive, see what we get. If so happens that the blade is too low, I will not stop the dust collector and the saw. I will just raise the blade and run it again, but I will make sure I'll show you in between. And just like that, we created our raised panel. Now you can see I have a little bit of lip here. You can leave that and sand it if you want. If you raise the blade just a little bit higher, it gets rid of that. My blade was just a little bit short. But this is what a 15 degree would give you. If you go to 20 degrees, the angle is just gonna stop somewhere there. Easy, right? Now I hope this was helpful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing and I'll see you in my next video.